My name is Ray Cool. I want to welcome you and thank each of you for your attendance at today's webinar. We will move quickly. Our goal is to cover some important information to help save time. Many of you have dabbled in Windows 10. Some have done more than dabbled. Some of you have not yet broken the ice. Well, the goal of today is really for Windows 10 to help you bypass the difficulties. So as part of Microsoft's Windows Insider program for several months now, we've learned a lot, and the one basic piece of information, setup, really makes a difference. We'll talk about that. Cloud hosting. Some of you use cloud hosting. Most, and based on your attendance today, that would make sense, are new and looking to increase your involvement in document cloud hosting. So we've learned a lot about this. We'll share about those things. And then the Microsoft Office, we'll talk just a bit about the differences between versions of Office, but we'll talk definitely about when you transition from one version of Office to the next, how can you avoid having to redo your setups, your dictionaries, and so forth. So let's move forward. So many of you are familiar with PBSI. Thank you very much for your partnership. Many of you, this could be your first exposure to PBSI. So though we do a lot of very specific things for healthcare practices and for commercial businesses, the unifying factor with all of our clients is IT services, where we provide a range of on-site, online, security-related services. And today's webinar has nothing to do with any of that. It's simple, free information to help folks with technology. So lots of experienced staff, and I'm grateful to be the president of an organization where the job gets done well, not perfectly every day. So first topic, Windows 10 setup principles. So some of the things we'll discuss are opinion, and we try to make clear where that's true. So you may feel differently than I do or our staff does about certain setups, but the principles behind our opinions, visually, we want to turn complex into simple. File access, we want to make things easy to find in an organized way. Application settings, we want to cut through the hundreds of choices to the ones that really matter. And securing PC, we'll talk about a couple of really key things here that are, of course, very important. And browser setup, bonus conversation, some areas where when you first use Windows 10, this was one of my initial impressions, oh my gosh, this is ugly, this is crowded, this is all kinds of activity going on, so what kinds of setting choices can be made to turn this back to simple and organized? So this is our first topic. I'm going to use the document that we are providing as kind of an outline of our discussion. So we talked about setup principles. And so I'm going to go through some setup choices in a way that might not be ABC, but in terms of the way I would go about setting up a PC, the first place I would start is with the menu. So one of the things, and I'm using Windows 10, and this is my menu. So when you first get a PC out of the box, you may find that this menu fills the screen, as it did with Windows 8, and it frustrated a lot of people because they couldn't find anything and everything was different. So there are some choices here. One of the things that we want to do is turn this into organized instead of disorganized. So when you first open up your menu, you'll find lots of movement. Almost every box has a feature turned on called Live Tile. So that action underneath my cursor took place automatically. First thing, I would go to every single box, and I'd choose, sometimes it's directly available, sometimes you have to use more. I would turn Live Tile off. So I intentionally put these options on my menu for this demonstration just to indicate how you do this. So turn Live Tile off. Now, in fact, I'm going to take another action here. I'm going to unpin from my start menu. So this start menu, this is the menu. And so another thing that happens when you take Windows on a fresh PC is the boxes aren't all the same size. So we can change the size of some of these. And I'm going to, going to do that. So if I wanted to change the size of this, medium is the size I have set. So if I wanted to make that small and make this small, I won't do a lot of this, just an indication. So there are things that you might not use as frequently. You want to put them in an organized way. You want to avoid the menu going to the bottom. So you can set up groups. So I've called my groups work apps and occasional apps. You can have security apps. You can just click on this and give this group a name. So make your menu simple. That's advice. So what I follow is the things I use most, upper left, and so forth. So organize your menus such that it's not disjointed, and we'll talk about the specific setting where you want to say that your menu is not full screen. Full screen would cover the full keyboard and it would look more like your iPhone, except for a way too big a screen to use an iPhone. So first choice, menu setup, turn live tile off. This is a performance thing. So I've had comments that, gee, why turn live tile off? That's a really cool feature of Windows 10. And sure it is, if you care about your weather being updated while you're not watching it, and every few seconds you get another update, okay, but that affects performance, and my premise is we're using all of these devices in a business setting. So there are some choices here, frequently used apps and occasionally used apps. So one thing that we set up is the menu, then another is the taskbar. So the taskbar is at the bottom of your screen. So on my taskbar, you can see a few items here that are larger because those are live in operation, and then a few things that are icons sitting here. So I'm going to right-click on the taskbar, and we're going to talk about some of these settings. So this is the instruction here. You right-click on the taskbar to customize, and we want to look at some properties. So if I right-click and I look at the properties, the ones that we really care about are, I like to use small taskbar buttons. That is a preference thing, but that means that these little buttons down here don't take up as much real estate as if they were bigger, because I tend to have many things going, so small. We don't want to auto-hide the taskbar, and generally we don't want to lock it. So the rest of these user preferences. So I'm going to look at this customize just real quickly. So the customize takes us to a place where we can select which icons appear on the taskbar, and here you'll see antivirus, the PBSI support icon, volume. So most all of these are turned off. Otherwise, my taskbar here could become very crowded. So paying attention to getting rid of the things if you don't know what it is, get rid of it. You're not going to use it. So taskbar. Another setting, if you're on a mobile device, then showing the touch keyboard is a good idea. But if you're not, I just turned that off on my PC and don't need to waste the screen real estate. The task view button, there's more than one way to do this, but I generally like the task view button. That is this box down here on the lower left. I'm going to click on that, and I see visually, so I could go straight to a particular, I'm going to close that window down because it's not relevant. So having that on the taskbar makes sense to me. I like a snipping tool because if I had a screenshot and an error message, I could take the snipping tool and copy a piece without doing it the old way and having to take the whole screen. So these would be things that you'd commonly, so the area here is you're making a choice to put things either on your start menu or on your taskbar. Generally, it's a waste of time and space to put the same program both places. You can get to them quickly. All right, so that's just a bit of information up front. Now I'm going to move on to file access. So this is not a setting per se. We will get to the settings app in Windows 10, which is the place where most people takes a while to really find where the heck do I set X or Y. But this conversation is partly about opinion, it's about productivity, and partly it's about new features. So you see that there is a quick access. This is a new feature in Windows 10 that didn't exist prior. It replaces what used to be favorites. Well, I used favorites all the time to find files. So the setting of quick access, a couple of things can really help. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to open File Explorer, and you'll see what I mean by accessing quick access, and then I'm going to change a couple of things about it. So File Explorer, I have set on my taskbar. I've opened it up now, and it's coming to a menu of things which I've made simple. So I don't want this long list of my PC things. I want just a short list of things to select from. And so one of these is quick access. So when you choose quick access, I'll go back to our document for a moment and just look. We want to go to the View tab, the Options button, and we want to make a couple of settings related to quick access. So I'm going to do that now. Quick access, View tab, Options. So the options I want to change, generally I want to decide whether I see recently used files and folders in quick access. This is a useful thing if you set it, but again, it's a choice between clutter and speed and simplicity. So the main thing here is to set this box, Open File Explorer, to quick access instead of to this PC. If I set it to this PC, It's fine, there's nothing wrong with it, but when I open up File Explorer, it goes to my PC and I get to drill down into whatever's there. I much prefer it to go to quick access. So I'm going to reset that on my PC to tell it to go to quick access. And I'll a little bit more conversation about quick access here so that you understand why we make that recommendation. So what I really appreciate about this is a short list of things to select from. So I have a folder that I've named A Links that contains all of the folders I commonly search in. So this is what I used to do in favorites. Now I can still do this in quick access. If you aren't aware of how this works with setting up a folder like this, you'll find yourself possibly like I was first with Windows 10, frustrated at the absence of favorites. So this works very similarly to favorites with one key exception. So at PBSI, we have divisions, medical division, we have crystal reports that go to different databases. So I like to organize these things alphabetically. That makes sense to me. We have a customer files directory for one group of customers and a customer files group for another group. Well, under a folder structure, they're both called customer files. You cannot rename on your end menu, which you could with favorites. So how do you solve that? You set up a folder, and the instructions are in this document how to do this. Set up this folder, drag your favorites into it, and you're all set. So I also have Google Drive and OneDrive. So OneDrive is Microsoft's version of file sharing, where these are cloud-based files, and Google Drive, same thing. So they both work very well. We'll have a brief conversation about those, but my main thing here is I want to use Windows Explorer to search for everything. So I'll make a comment about this, but setting up this quick access, there's three methods, and the first one is the simplest if you don't need to rename folders. But if you do, there are instructions here for method 2 and method 3. So the simplest way to set up folders is you go to a particular place on your network, and let's say that hardware security services is a folder that I want to share. So I can right-click on that folder, and I'll say pin to quick access. And having done that, now that security services folder is a part of my normal links. So generally, I'm going to remove that because I don't want to crowd that, a bunch of files there. In my case, I want to keep them under links and have them alphabetically in one place. Okay, so enough about that, but the settings there can really help. We find a lot of staff inside of PBSI and certainly in client offices. Some basic things here is revolutionary to their understanding of how they can be more efficient in searching for shared files. Many of you are in a place where you have already removed documents from all of your C drives and you store everything on your network so it's backed up. That's great. Many of you haven't gotten there yet, and this is really kind of a key component, is teaching people to use this. Okay, so one more thing about File Explorer, and that is recommendation to use it for all searches. So the downside of using individual applications like Word, most people open up Word to search for Word files. But when you do that, Word doesn't search in subfolders. When you do that, Word only searches for Word files. So by using File Explorer, I can go to an area, and if I want to search in a particular area, or I'll go here where I want to look at PBSI solutions, I'll go into this folder and I'll look for part of the file name, and it finds in the order that I've requested, either in name sequence or in date modified sequence. It finds everything that matches, whether it's a PDF or a Word document or whatever else. So it's a very simple way to avoid people saying, yeah, I looked there and I did not find that file. So use File Explorer. So the other thing is setting this. Again, we're going to go to opinion here, but to me, I see people using File Explorer and I see all kinds of what I consider mess. So I have a really consistent way of doing this with any folder I use. I either have a folder that's in name sequence or it's in date last modified sequence, just depends on the contents of that folder, but the columns always have the name, then date modified. I want to know occasionally the size or the file type, and I want to know the folder name. There's an option here where I try to set this. Once you set it, it remembers it for that folder, where I know the location of this on the network if I want more than just the file name. So this, we're going to leave this topic now, but there are some settings here and some instructions how to accomplish this that can help with efficiency. All right, so we're going to move on now. Windows 10, the main topic of confusion for most of us is the Settings app. So there's a new app that comes with Windows 10. It sits down here on the very lower right-hand corner of your menu, or there are a number of ways to do this. On your menu here, you can put it on your menu, and here is the Settings app. So the organization of this is something new, and you might think, well, this isn't in alphabetic order. What the heck? What's the sequence here? So I'm going to go through this in a sequence that makes sense to me, and it's not first one, then second one, then third one. So the first one, if I'm setting up a new PC, I'm going to go first to Accounts and make this PC look like mine. So if you're a person who's setting this up for your staff, or you have PBSI set this up for your staff, when they first log in, a picture comes up. So you'd like it not to be no picture. You'd like it to be something that makes sense. So it's a really silly thing, possibly, but I'm going to look at Picture, Camera, Sign-in options, and Microsoft Account. So there are many other choices here, but I'm going to go to Accounts, and you see this is my login. It could be a picture of me, but that just wouldn't look very good, so that's what I have chosen as my picture, and I can browse and select a picture. I can use the camera that's on my computer to take a picture right now and use it as my picture. So put a picture there, recommendation. I can set up my email here. You may not need to do that. If the employee has a Microsoft account, if you're going to use Office 365 or OneDrive for Business, it's a recommendation that you either learn what your employee's Microsoft account is or set one up. It's free, very simple to do, but this allows these to be connected together. So some settings here, sign-in options. So what do I do when I have my computer go to sleep? So I have mine go to sleep after 10 minutes, I believe, 15 minutes. It would depend. Your choice there is however long you wish to wait. That's perfectly fine. If you have a battery-powered device like a Microsoft Surface, obviously you'd make it sleep a little sooner, but we recommend that we require re-sign in when the PC wakes up. It's a security thing. You don't have to have a complex password. In fact, Microsoft's done a couple really interesting things. So one is you can set up a PIN. So the PIN, I'm going to say change mine, and I'm not actually going to change it, but it's a 4-digit code. And Microsoft actually has, so I'm going to cancel this. I'm not really going to change that, but I'd recommend setting up a PIN. So the reason is my login password to Windows is a bunch of characters. It's a secure password, and that's really a hassle every time I log in. So using this PIN, Microsoft has actually made the point in communications that this is more secure than your network login. It only works when you're locally at your PC. So if you remotely access your network or you remotely log into your PC from someplace else, this PIN doesn't work. Only you have to be sitting there at your PC, hence it's electronically inaccessible unless you have physical access to the PC. So it's a useful thing, saves some time. And something I've done on my Microsoft Surface, which is really cool, the technology is great, so you're familiar with the fact that out there somewhere exists the technology to look at a picture and do some recognition. Well, this works very simply and very well. So if you choose this, I don't have a camera on my PC, which you all are very glad about, but when you do this, a picture comes up, it's looking at me, and I click take the picture. If you've ever done a finger scan reader setup, it's the same kind of thing. You do it multiple times, it takes a few different angles, and finally it says, okay, I know enough. Well, now, when I go to my Microsoft Surface and turn it on, it looks at me, even if I'm sideways looking at it, and it says, is it you? Is it you? Yep, it is, and there it is. I don't have to log in at all, nothing to key in. So it's really interesting if you have a camera on your device. It's worth setting up. Of course, you don't want that to be your only method of access. So account setup. Personalization. So here we really get into opinions. I won't go deeply into this, but one of the things I want to say is Microsoft makes available some really beautiful themes. You want to make sure every staff member from a security point of view does not download screensavers. They're some of the worst security risks on the internet. So do they have to suffer without golf course pictures or whatever else? No, there's some beautiful themes. So here is where, to me, one of the most important settings is under personalization. It's where you say, do I want my start screen to be full or not? And I choose no. So we'll go to personalization, see how this works. So personalization, and I have a background set to slideshow. I've chosen a theme. It changes the picture every so often. It shuffles or not. colors. It can be automatically related to the picture, or you can choose a different color. I'll choose something really ugly, but you can see that this impacts the way your environment looks. So totally preference oriented there. And do we want to make this this taskbar transparent? The answer is dramatically no. I've tried that and it really causes some difficulty. So I'm going to go down one more place, themes, and here we can choose themes, which you can download. Here's the place to do it, get more themes online, choose a different theme. There's some really beautiful themes out there. If I choose one, it immediately takes effect, and now my background. By the way, very lower right-hand corner on my screen, if you can see my cursor at the very, very lower right-hand corner, if I click on that very sliver, it shows the desktop. So it's a very easy way to show the desktop that is not new. That same feature existed in previous versions of Windows. So personalization. So the choice there, I want to make the point with the start menu, is we want to say we do not want the start screen to be full. Some of these others, there are choice items. Do we want most recently used apps to be added? I opt for simplicity, so when I click on my start button, I don't see options up here that are frequently used or recently used. You might prefer to. So that's where the setting takes place under personalization. Okay, quickly we'll move on here. System. Notifications here, this is another performance and it's a clarity thing. So notifications can do some things that really interrupt workflow. So we have a separate document, by the way, for Microsoft Surfaces and portable units where there's some settings that are relevant to a portable unit that don't necessarily affect the desktop. But we want to select which icons appear down here in personalization. And we want to choose power and sleep mode choices. That's done under System. So here we choose notifications, and generally the things that we recommend here is there is no reason to have all these things on, because if these notifications are on, they will take performance issues and you'll have things popping up on your taskbar that just aren't necessary. So I choose antivirus related stuff and volume button. That's pretty much what I have set. So there's some other choices here which are useful to understand. Do I want to see tips about Windows? No, thank you, I don't. Do I want to show notifications from apps? So these are just choices that you make, and I don't want, so you can change these. By the way, there's a setting that you can synchronize these across devices. So if you have 3 devices, you have a laptop, you have your work PC, you have a PC at home. If you have the same Microsoft account, you can synchronize where you make a setting change here and it applies to all of your devices. So some useful things there. Okay, so Bluetooth, touchpad, these are really useful information for folks with portable devices. And the thing I'll mention here is the choice between long and short delay. If you've ever used a portable device where you have a touchpad and it's very, very sensitive, so you run your thumb across it and all of a sudden it's done the same as clicking a button, this long delay replaces what used to be a choice, disable touchpad during keyboard input. So it gets rid of a big, big hassle, and it's a setting under devices. Okay, so network and internet. So there's some choices here. I'll just quickly touch on a couple. So when I go to Wi-Fi, which is one of the choices, on my settings menu, then I can make some, pardon me here, get to the right place. So network and internet, Wi-Fi is underneath that. So network and internet. Oh, I don't have Wi-Fi on my device. So I'm thinking, where is that? So if you have a portable unit or you do have Wi-Fi, there are some choices to make. So what are the choices that we'd recommend making? One is that we set Wi-Fi accessibility to my device to off. There's a similar setting which it's mentioned in this document as well, where you can make your device accessible to Microsoft to tailor advertising content. And if you want tailored advertising content, by all means, but to me, I'd rather they not know anything and just leave me alone with all the content. And the same thing with Wi-Fi. These are things where you can make choices to connect automatically to suggested hotspots and so forth, but they take processor time, they take battery power. So simply for a portable unit, they're fairly important. So privacy, the last thing I'll mention here, background apps and privacy. So when we go to settings, there's a privacy button, and I want to see no apps using my advertising ID. And I don't want these things to be present. I'm okay if Microsoft learns how I write so they can improve the app. These are personal choices, but this is a security and privacy recommendation. Same thing with location. Do we want location to be on? And there's some reasons you might want to do it if you want your weather app, and you can identify which apps. In my case, on this fixed PC, I don't want that on. I don't need it on. So make your choices. If you're going to use a microphone, then you definitely want to say yes, and you'll choose which apps. That's a very useful feature, and so forth. So there's some settings here that are useful, but background apps, the only other one I'm going to mention is if you have background apps. So I'm saying no, 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 no. These things, I can use these applications, but why do I need these taking up processor power? So I'm going to make a point also about this. So we've learned as a part of the Windows Insider program that one of the frustrating things that Microsoft does, I had already set these all to off. I did an update last night, it refreshed, and it turned them back on. You'll find also that it will re-implement Bing as your search provider, which you may not want, and a couple of other fairly innocuous but nasty little things. So just FYI, if you find something changed, it is likely related to when you did an update. Okay, so updates and security. This is an important thing. I'll touch on it very briefly. But updates and security, so I have these set, and you should too, to have these happen automatically. So the reason that that's true, including advanced options, there's a setting here that do I want updates for other products when I update Windows? The answer should be yes, always. So the reason is a security patch gets released by Microsoft or any other major manufacturer, you want that installed as quickly as possible, because the hacker community becomes aware of a security patch, and then they try and go after anybody with a prior rev of that particular application. So it's an important thing for security, and so that happens under the Settings app. So I'm not going to talk about other security, but of course you need antivirus, you need effective antivirus, you need to make sure it's consistent and updated online in real time. For sake of time, I'm not going to go into the internet settings, but this hasn't changed dramatically other than Microsoft has released a new browser with Windows called Edge, and they say it's the replacement for Windows Explorer. And Windows Explorer has its issues. It's a fine browser. I tend to prefer Chrome, but there's no right and wrong to which browser. But I will say the general consensus of those who've used Windows 10 is Edge is not ready yet. So you'll find Edge becomes your browser. So you recognize the Internet Explorer icon. The Edge icon is bigger, possibly more modern looking. So when you first open up your internet, you'll find Edge has taken over, and what used to be a simple thing has become different. And down here at the bottom of my screen, you see there's an app that wants to be an add-on. You don't need add-ons that, unless you really know what it is, it simply slows down performance on your PC. So there are some settings you can make here where it's really useful, and the main point is we'd recommend don't use Edge, at least for now. Choose your default browser to be either Internet Explorer or Chrome, or if you have a different preference, fine. And there are a couple of other settings here that are pretty useful. I'm not going to discuss them, but they'll be in the document that you'll receive. So Windows settings. So the idea here is we want to help, and if you kind of follow this instruction sheet in setting up a PC, you'll end up hopefully with a cleaner install. You've dealt with the key things and haven't wasted time on the choice things. Okay, conversation about cloud hosting. I'm changing topics now. So many of you, like me, have used cloud storage for photos for a long time, and okay, that's simple and there's some benefits to it, but we find that not many have really used the web much for file sharing. So as long as you have adequate internet, the issues surrounding file sharing tend to be, they work pretty well. And so I've used both the Microsoft and the Google versions, and there's really not one is better than the other. So if you're thinking you'd like access to your files from home or other locations, if you use a laptop and a PC and you don't want to copy files and bring them back and forth or log in from home, if you have a critical need for availability of files, if your server in your office is down, which if you're a PBSI client, that would never happen. You have questions about whether your files are being backed up effectively. You have questions about reliability of your current internal infrastructure. You might consider putting them in the cloud. You want to avoid buying a new server when the time comes. So these are all reasons that you might want to consider the cloud. And then which vendor, we've done some homework here to give you some information. Basically, this isn't saying, here's the product to use, all the rest of them are garbage. These are all pretty darn good products that are very similar to each other. But what has to happen is that the setup and the training of staff needs to be done consistently and securely. So basically, we're saying choose integration simplicity. So this document, cloud host setup choices, the main two vendors in the market, which are increasingly grabbing market share, Microsoft and Google. They both are very clean. They install automatically. They show up on your Windows Explorer. They both give you free user space. With Office 365, you get significantly larger amount of storage included with your Office. But beyond that, very similar, and they're both simple. Apple, Dropbox, Box, Amazon, Adobe, and more every day. There are all kinds of free options for more storage. So how many options do you need? Simplify, that'd be a recommendation. So the key things about security. So there's data encryption that locks down a file so that nobody can access what's in there. So the two areas are in transit and at rest. So in transit, when I'm storing a file in the cloud or I'm downloading a file, all major cloud services encrypt data during transit. So there's software in place where you don't have to install any separate VPN software. That's an assured thing where basically they've taken care of the risk in transit. So at rest, so now you've put a file in the cloud. OneDrive, interestingly, is the only one among the major vendors where OneDrive does not encrypt data at rest by itself. So what that means is you need to either avoid storing secure information like patient data, PHI, social security numbers. You need to avoid storing those things in the cloud, or use Office 365 OneDrive for Business, which comes with pretty much any version of 365, and then the data is encrypted. If you don't, there are some other choices for encryption. One is to use free products like Boxcryptor, where you can tell Boxcryptor to encrypt certain files or certain folders or subfolders, and it's really fairly straightforward, where now you need a password to open that document, but it's encrypted. And the reason you might want that is you don't want Google's web searches to be pouring through the contents of your documents on the web. So encryption is important to understand, but basically this isn't an issue that is difficult and it isn't expensive. So that's pretty much the summary there. So sharing this is a simple procedure, and I'll show you just exactly how to do this. And you can choose sharing with specific people, sharing with everyone within your domain or your email, like at pbsinet.com. We could share things with everyone, or we can be specific and choose privileges that certain people can open, they can view only, and so forth. And so the process of setup is very similar with OneDrive and with Google Drive. You just want to be careful about it. So I'm going to just real quickly do this. I have a document here. You see Google Drive on my PC. I'm on the board of a nonprofit, and I double click here, and these are documents that are shared among board members, and the permissions are granted to do certain things, and a subfolder might be granted to everyone, or it might not be. So it's really that simple. There's my information. It's stored in the cloud, but I double click and open it. So now using OneDrive, same thing. I have a folder on my PC where I have said, link this folder with OneDrive. And so here's the folder, and there are some subfolders. So we have some solutions documents that I've been participating in working on, and so those are linked to my OneDrive. And then I have other folders underneath where personal files, and I want to just do a quick demonstration here. These are tests, these are demonstration files. So this is a demonstration encrypted file. This is what encrypted means. It comes up with a password, requires a password. So I have stored my unfortunate vacation planning information about my trip to Timbuktu and recovering from that. So if I were using the online version of Excel, which comes with the least expensive version of Office 365, I could not open this document. It says, oops, this one's encrypted, you can't do that. If there are links in your document, it says, oops, you can't do that. So we'll talk briefly about 365. But the very least expensive option only gives you access to cloud versions of Microsoft apps. So this is pretty much all the discussion we're going to have here, but setting up a structure is one thing, and then you have whatever structure. So this is PBSI's sharing structure, and so I can look at anything that's out here and drill into it. This structure could be shared on a server at PBSI, or it could be shared on the web. So many of you are in the position where you're saying, let's just get all of that out onto the web and make sure that it's secured and backed up and so forth. Okay, we're all done with Windows 10, and quickly we're going to review now a couple of other issues. So we will be finished by 1 o'clock. It's really important to be on time. So we've talked about Windows 10 and some setup choices. We've talked about cloud sharing and a bit of information. Here, Microsoft Office. So the main thing I want to say here is you can simplify upgrading. You may recognize some of the difficulties here. So you'll receive this document about setup instructions. There are really three key things that are mentioned. One is don't have to redo your dictionary. Otherwise, if you don't follow this process right here, you replace your PC, you now have your dictionary that Outlook has used or Word has used on your behalf, where it knows your customer names and it knows to say EHR instead of HER and those kind of things. You have to teach it all those things over again, but you can take the step to avoid it. Prior to upgrade, every version of Windows stores your custom dictionary on your PC in the same way. Under your name, app data roaming, there's this file called custom.dic. So you go there and you copy it and you paste it into your shared OneDrive or something, and now you have captured it. So you upgrade and then you copy it and paste it back into the same place, and you've replaced the generic custom dictionary with the one you've painstakingly built over years. Really useful. If you've been through the frustration of redoing your whole custom dictionary, you know, just a little bit of knowledge can really help. Okay, so another thing that may not be relevant for everybody, but this is something I use quite a bit, the ribbon line. So my display here, I'm not showing anything on the top, and because I have this auto hide ribbon set, but now I want to have it set the way I do when I'm editing documents. I have the normal things that Microsoft provides, and I have this custom, which I'm going to show now, quick access toolbar. So the quick access toolbar, I put things on here that I use all the time, like format painter and some formatting commands, because I might be in some other tab in Word, but I still have all my formatting commands and being able to view and zoom and things that are just change the formatting. So when I set all these up, you'll find you install a new version of Office. It doesn't matter from which version to which version, always universally this gets replaced. So here's what you do. Before you upgrade, customize your quick access toolbar. And here is this import export thing. So I'm going to export even though I've already done this. And it says, where do you want to put it? I'm saying I'd like to put it on my OneDrive folder. So now I've replaced that folder and I'm all done. So later on, I install my new version of Office and I say, oops, they're all gone. I have no more customized toolbar. So I will not despair, because I will customize, excuse me, not the ribbon, I'll customize the quick access toolbar and I say import, and it goes out. I say, where do I want to import from? Excuse me, I want to import from this place where I've stored my Word customizations, and voila. So I no longer have to reset up my home PC separately from my work PC or my laptop. And the good news about this, you have folks in your office who use Word and they know everything I'm talking about here. They do this all the time. And you have folks who say, "What? I don't even know what this thing is." It does help make Word more efficient. Same thing with other Office applications. So you can customize and export one time and use that same import for everybody's Excel and everybody's Word and everybody's PowerPoint in every version. So you could export it from 2003 and import it into 2016. So that's sharing ribbon line information. So one other thing, there are others, but really getting your file name and path in the bottom of a document. For the longest time, I thought, well, that's a feature Word just doesn't have. But if you go to Design, I won't go through this process, Design, Footer, Edit, Quick Parts, choose a field, and you choose File Name. Click Add to Path, and now in your footer, you have this stored. So without some extra fooling around not provided by Microsoft, if you change the file name, you do have to change this, but at least now hopefully everybody understands the idea that when you see a document, like, you know, where it's stored, so you don't have to create another one if you can't find it. So those are some settings for Microsoft Office that can save you a ton of time when you're in productivity for employees, because they'll sit at their desk, as I would, and take an hour to redo the setups so that they can use it for the next 4 years. Okay, final topic, Exchange and online plans for Microsoft Office. So a key thing to understand is that Microsoft Office 2016 is the latest version now available from Microsoft. The product's fine. I won't say that it has any that I'm aware of compelling features beyond 2013, and that's been true for some years. I don't really feel like it's important that somebody has the latest of Microsoft Office. But if you're going to buy 2016, then you have a choice. So the long history of Microsoft, as most software vendors, is you purchase a one-time fee. So right now with a new PC, that's about $220. So $220 is your one-time fee, or you can buy access to Microsoft Office along with a subscription. So there are more choices than just, this is actually a link to Microsoft's site, and the recommended choice if you're going to do this is Business Premium, because you get the latest version of desktop apps. And if you have this for 3 years, you've paid an annual fee each year, but you now get the 2019 version when it comes out. And so you're pre-building in, and at what premium is the question. So here's the way this works. $12.50 a month by committing annually. It includes Microsoft Exchange, which this is something that's really come about. The cost of this has really come down. Many of you, like PBSI, have an Exchange server in your office. If you do, there's no reason to change it. But if you didn't have an Exchange server, for most organizations, it's less expensive to take advantage of cloud storage for sharing calendars and contacts and so forth. So Microsoft Exchange Online is included in this $12.50. So you're really spending $8.50 for Microsoft Office. So if you do the math, $8.50 times, let's say you use it for 5 years before you upgrade, compare that to a one-time cost of $220, you will spend about double with Office 365 than you will by purchasing the installable app. But the Office 365 allows you to install all of these applications, Excel and PowerPoint, on up to 5 devices just for you, but your home PC, your conference PC that you use primarily, your laptop, they're included in the license. So there are some things here that need consideration. So, but the bottom line is, if you use not the inexpensive essential version, but you use the premium version, then you will receive full installable versions of Microsoft Office. So it's an economic choice. It is not a product choice. That's pretty much the bottom line. So either one is fine. You just do the math and figure out which is appropriate. And if you have a bunch of copies of Office that are already current, almost certainly you're better off keeping those in place and using the inexpensive 365 that gives you Exchange. So we have more information about that, and we're happy to share. So a lot of information. I know I've gone quickly. Hopefully it's not been too fast or too confusing, but the summary of what we've talked about, is it time for Windows 10? I'm not necessarily saying yes, Windows 10 is fine. Set it up correctly, it's good. I like it. I wouldn't go back. But if you have Windows 7 and it's working fine, should you upgrade? I know of no reason, honestly. So the purpose here is, if you're going to dive into Windows 10, do it with some consideration and saving time. So, but it's not, I'm not saying do it. Time for sharing cloud, same thing. If your current structure works fine and causes no issues, you have no remote access issues, you don't have backup concerns, why move? However, if you can avoid the cost of a server and so forth, then consider it and just make sure you plan it, communicate, and secure it. And then with Office, same thing. If you choose to upgrade, there's some information that helps. So hopefully you're clear about that. We're not trying to sell product. We're not trying to sell Microsoft's product. We're trying to help. If and when you choose to do these upgrades, you know how to do it. So thank you for your attendance. We are finished. Each of you will receive by email copies of these setup documents, and there are many of these solutions kinds of documents. So if you're a PBSI client and you're considering a technology issue and you want to find out if we've done the research to help advise, we'll supply these solutions documents at no cost. We figure part of our job is to learn and proliferate knowledge so you don't have to duplicate the research that we do. So thank you for your attendance. You will get a short questionnaire if you'd like follow-up at the conclusion of webinar. Tell us, we'll follow up. I think you all know PBSI well enough to know you won't be bugged. We're here to serve if you have questions. My contact information is here. And so there are a lot of things that we can do for you. If you want help, we're happy to do the setup for you in any of these areas instead of just provide the knowledge to you. So that will be your choice. So thank you very much for your attendance today. We are finished with webinar. Now I will remain online so that if anyone wishes to